Welcome to Thoughtspeak, the original Animorphs Podcast dedicated to K.A. Applegate's sci-fi classic. I'm your host, Michelle.
And I'm Coleman.
And Thoughtspeak is back once again, promptly in time for the wrapping up of this magnificent series. We are in the final countdown now here with these last books. And tonight, we've got a very, very special, I think, change to the series canon coming.
Yeah, you all weren't ready for a weekly release schedule, were you? Well, that's what we're here to bring you, finally, after so long.
It's been a while, but I think we are motivated and dedicated to the cause and just having such a good time going through these last couple of books that we're really interested in cranking them out early. And to that end, I would love to have people join our Patreon army by supporting us and helping us keep the lights on here at the Thoughtspeak Podcast. We've got a pretty large collection of controllers that we've enlisted to our cause, and I just want to thank them all by name real quick. We've got Nicholas Guy in our Yerk level. We've got our friend Andrew, our dear friend Andrew, with us as always, the Yerk he is. James Miola as a Texan. We've got Jacqueline Fisher, once again, as a Texan. Thank you. Ben Freeman, with us for a long time, our fellow Texan. And then one of our most recent patrons joining us is Penguin Tots at the Hork-Bajir level. Thank you all so much. And you know, if you're really interested in seeing us get these books and get these episodes out as fast as possible, the Patreon is the best way to do it. And by coming and throwing your support behind us, it makes it possible for us to even keep the show going a little bit farther and maybe, say, doing some interesting interviews with a series creator, K. Applegate, Michael Grant, Chris Grind, friend of the show. You know, it's all possible. So why don't you come check out our Patreon and help us out?
And let us know, we haven't reworked the Patreon. In the past, we've given away extra episodes for being a Patreon subscriber, or we've done live Q&As or things along those lines. Let us know in these last few books if there's something you guys would want or something extra that we could, do a little more and go a little further for those who've supported us for so long. I also want to give a shout out to just the reaction to our coming back. I mean, I was expecting just a few people to listen and kind of our normal audience we've had in the past. But we've gotten a ton of listens for this resurgence, this new episode. We've gotten tons of comments on like Reddit and Twitter and a bunch of other places. I know we've gotten at least a dozen or so new listeners who are like, "Oh, I didn't know about your all's podcast," and it's just great to see. And I think people were ready for us to come back. So we just had to hold strong and not take any more year-long hiatuses.
Oh, that's promising. I wasn't aware that anybody had said anything positive about us being back, but that's terrific. And, once we are done with the series proper, it's all out there and it joins the pantheon of growing Animorph review podcasts that are out there since we started doing this like 8 years ago.
Which I'd just like to say, we've had our words about the Animorphs fandom and the other podcasts and stuff. I've gotten a chance to listen to a few of them and talk to quite a few of the creators on Twitter. And, I love what the community's turned into. All the podcasts are great. They're all just benefiting each other and benefiting, the franchise and Animorphs in general and K. Applegate. So if you are a current host or a former host of another podcast, Animorphs, just thank you for doing that, and thank you for being a part of the community. We're excited and happy to wrap up ours and join that group of people. So, but you didn't want to hear about all that. Do we have any new since the last episode?
No,
I don't think there's any new news. about
Not
Animorphs.
news per se, but
Yeah.
you know what? A thought that I had was with the series winding down, maybe there's somehow some way that we could join forces with some of the other podcast hosts or creators and do like a team up of sorts of all the most popular ones or something along those lines.
Somebody did say back in the day,
we could all talk about our favorite books or something.
Yeah, somebody did say back in the day about a Megamorphs podcast episode with all the big podcasters coming together in an episode like you're talking about. And it's a Megamorph episode. So that would be cool.
I don't know the online statistics for downloads or whatever, or who constitutes like the biggest, most popular ones. So I would be a very surprising and fun thing to meet them all.
Yeah, maybe we could work it out. So yeah, if you're one of those podcasters, we're both on. Are you very active on Twitter? I don't think you are very much.
I have a Twitter. I don't like using it. No. Okay.
Well, I'm at Coleman McClung on Twitter. So I posted the last episode under my own handle instead of the our old Twitter handle. So reach out to me if that's interesting to you, and maybe we could get a big collab down for just a random episode. We're interested in anything that makes this time in our lives not completely go away, and stretching out this podcast a little bit. So yeah, we're excited.
That's a nice way to look at it. And you know what? Reading the Animorphs series overall is like trying to make a period of our lives, like that childhood, go on forever and never go away. And that's my segue into talking about the Animorphs books overall, especially the one that we're going to be talking about here, which is Animorphs number 52, The Sacrifice. And yeah, I'm going to show my co-host the cover.
Before we jump into that, we are going to do a quick ad, which again, like the Patreon, helps support the show. So give us one moment and then we'll jump right in. And we're back. What an exciting ad read. Not by me, which they have been in the past, but by my lovely wife, Liz McClung, who's also a former co-host of the show for one or two episodes.
Yeah, it's very, very delighted to hear her doing one of those for you. Very cool.
It was cool, and she was very excited to do it. So, she was on Megamorphs number 2 with the dinosaurs. We should get Nate back. Nate's only been on for one episode way back in the day.
I thought we had Nate on for 2.
Did we?
Actually,
maybe.
I'm pretty sure we had him on 2.
Our guest hosts are pretty.
We had him on the Andalites Chronicles.
Yeah.
Andalite Chronicles, and then we had him on the Howler book.
Which was a weird book to bring in someone who's not familiar with the Animorphs very much.
Well, it was like a good sci-fi adventure where they're whisked away to an alien planet by the big evil Krayak space devil. So it was an interesting one. I think you enjoyed it.
All our co-hosts of the year. So we've had, or guest hosts, I guess. We've had Liz. We've had Nate. We had Andrew. Didn't we have? We had one other person who was just a Patreon subscriber.
Did, and I was gonna say, ooh, this is dangerous territory, bud, because I don't necessarily remember every single person we've had on the show.
Look, whoever you are, we love you. You are a fine addition to the podcast. We just don't remember exactly who that was. And then Chris is a straight up co-host. He's a secret co-host, and rumor has it, Chris Grine, author of the graphic novels, might be joining us before we wrap this series up again. So we'll see how that pans out.
That's excellent, and that's actually because of the Patreon. Definitely. I don't know how I got the feeling that the Patreon was responsible for that. So
somehow, some way. Okay, now hold up the book cover so I can see it because I'm too lazy to Google search it. There we go.
Excellent. We are moving on, folks, to book 52, the Snacrifice, as I call it. And
is that because you see Aximilia as a snack? What's the?
No, just because I can't say the word sacrifice anymore now that I know that Snacrifice is a word.
Fair enough. There's a great axe morphing into a raccoon. I do like the color scheme of the cover. You know, we barely ever talk about like the likes and dislikes, but like the kind of the cool purple, red hues. Although like maybe the yellow god rays are a little overboard.
That's what I was gonna say. It's got some sun rays on it, and like it almost looks like a sunrise going on back here a little bit.
But like clip art sunrise.
As you said, the purple tones and the blue of Axe's fur fading into the gray of the raccoon. It actually does look pretty good from a color standpoint. The quote on the front is, "Everyone has nightmares. But what happens when the nightmares are real?"
Not very relevant to the plot.
I don't know what that's alluding to.
The Yerks are scary. If you dreamed about one, you'd be scared, like a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a stretch. You would love for me to read the back of the book, wouldn't you? Because I've got it right here.
Well, what's the inside cover? You didn't show me that.
The inside cover is literally just a picture of a raccoon, but they went the extra detail route and put in the transponder device.
Nice.
The Z-Space transponder. Mm-hmm.
Well, the extra mile would have been showing some Yerks and Morph in the background, maybe like a butterfly or, some kind of...
a bias perched
owl
nearby.
I think the Yerks are too stupid to morph owls, though. We haven't seen any of those, like... They don't have any like niche morphs. We don't see the night morph or like the super small morph, like infiltration morph. All we see is battle morphs from the Yerks.
Yeah, they're not thinking of utility reasons, that's for sure. But without further ado, this is the back of the book description for the sacrifice. The war between the Yerks and the Animorphs is still raging. There are no more secrets, but there are plenty of lies. The kids are fighting harder than they ever thought they could, and they're about to make the biggest decision they've ever had to face, a decision that may eventually break them all. Axe and the Animorphs have known that the ultimate destruction of the Yerk pool will give them a huge chance to take back Earth, and they've figured out a way to do it. But there's no way to destroy the pool without destroying everyone else that may be there, and there's no more time to think about it. There's only yes or no. I like the description. I do. It's fine. It doesn't give away too much.
It's one of those descriptions that feels like a strong marketing hand behind it, because as we'll get into with this book goes hard, and it's not messing around. So
it would be hard to adequately summarize all of it, as I just learned previously when I typed up my summary for this dang thing. It's not an easy one to put a summary to on the back of a book. Something about bombs on trains, and we'll get into it.
Birds on trains and
birds on trains on trains. I think.
Let's jump into it. Start us off.
Yeah, well, we'd been talking about how these books were opening more like with action scenes or surveillance scenes, and that's what we get started out with here right away with Axe and Rachel and James, who's just a welcomed addition to the cast of characters. Boy, I sure hope nothing bad happens to him ever. And we get them flying around the city, surveying some Yerk activity going on. A little bit of a roundup situation. Nothing to really concern yourselves with, I'm sure. Just human controllers pulling people out of their homes in the middle of the night or morning or whatever it is at gunpoint and forcing them down into the subway system.
I mean,
and boarding trains.
We talk about this a lot, but the audacity of this middle grade book series that's being sold at Scholastic book fairs to be like, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and write a reflection of the Holocaust into our books about kids turning into animals. Let's go ahead and do that, and let's make it a major plot point and revisit it over and over again. This is one of the most. This is to inform the listener. We've talked a lot about how there were books in this series that we had not read as children or in college when we reread the series. I missed a lot of books. This is the last book in the entire series I hadn't read before going into this podcast. And I held off until last week. I read my last Animorphs book that I'd never read before. And the fact that I missed how many insane things are in this book, and this is one of them. This is one of the darkest moments in the entire series in a book I'd never read before. Them forcing just normal people out of their homes and putting them on a train to the York Pool. It's dark in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely has some historic undertones. But this is one of those situations where the team knows right away that this is a huge Yerk plot for mass infestation of the people. They're no longer concerned with their secret war, and now they're just blatantly collecting people, rounding them up, and pushing them toward that Yerk pool. Rachel, as always, wants to intervene and go down and start a fight, and that's exactly what they do. They get pulled into one because, again, they've got more morph-capable controllers now, attacking as birds, as they do.
Yeah, they're more on the lookout for any type of animal, but the Animorphs haven't gotten used to that being on their end as well, like watching out for hawks and everything else. So they're definitely getting a taste of their own medicine here, and Rachel is digging for a fight anyway. I was surprised, again, having not read this book before. I thought we were kind of at least somewhat done with the Rachel is, going too far with her love of the war and her bloodthirstiness after The Return, her last book. But I think this book, more than any other in the entire series, really paints Rachel as lost. She's not going to make it psychology-wise after this war is over. She's too into it. She's going too far. She's not listening to any orders that don't come from Jake anymore. Like, I was really surprised. I had not seen this side of Rachel before in the entire series.
Yeah, she's a little bit of like a too high-leveled Pokemon. She just can't be controlled. That's an oversimplification of it, but
well, you got her in a trade. It went over the GBA link cable, and you weren't expecting a Charizard that wouldn't listen to you. So,
well, she's real out of control and itching for a fight, and it spills down into the subway station, and they're fighting on a moving train at one point. It's a really cool action piece for the beginning of the book. And James even gets to show off a moment where he's super useful in the fight. And a cooler moment involves Axe kind of catching one of these hawk morphed controllers off guard. And before he can kill him, the controller pleads with him for his life and says, he's so close to being free, which to him is being trapped in morph, so he can just fly away and get out of the fighting. And Axe is very conflicted about this, but, he does, I think, a very human thing and sympathizes for a moment and lets him go. And then, it indicates that maybe he didn't make it because of Rachel. But
do you think it was Rachel or James? Because James, first off, did not know that James's battle morph was a lion. What a cool mirror of David. Because James is the first. Huh?
How did you not know his battle morph was lion?
Is that in a book further back?
It was in Cassie's last book where they.
Well, maybe I just forgot.
And they specifically said, Jake, if he noticed that James picked a lion, Jake didn't say anything or didn't acknowledge.
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Well, that's my bad as a terrible Animorphs fan, but I had forgotten, and I'd just like to touch on it again. How cool of a reflection that is to David. But in this scene, I think it does say that he comes around the corner with blood on his mouth, his snout and stuff. So it could have been James, it could have been Rachel. Who knows? Yeah. Either way, it's just like, Axe's sympathy doesn't go very far.
Yeah, totally. But when they get to a kind of a save point in the battle, they're pressed to either what Rachel wants to do, continue going on, fighting more, or Axe is ready to get out of there and report back. And it's a good transition point for the book to go to the next scene, because we don't believe that this action is going to extend any further. And sure enough, the next scene, they're all back at the base camp place, which I had a hard time writing my summary. Do I want to refer to this as their base or their camp? Because they literally refer to it as camp.
It's the Hork-Bajir Free Valley. We reference it all the time. I will say you brought up a good point the other day after we read the book and we're talking about it a little bit. This book really has a different structure than the rest of the series. It really kind of goes to a different, you have action beat and then moment and then action beat but it's not a setup for a mission like normal. The whole Yeerkpool part of it gets thrust on them, and then almost the main mission is kind of like breaking into the base, which we're going to see here in a minute. But just a cool thing off the start to see a more freeform flow to the book than we're used to seeing.
Yeah, it definitely breaks a few of the more typical formulas that they go with for these things. But I mean, we've seen the action opening and then more of like the mission sort of what's going on this week scene that we're about to get. But like I said, writing the summary for this thing was huge because so much happens. There's all
Very
this
dense
dialogue and the characters are talking and like lots and lots of good character interaction.
It's almost like a real book.
Yeah, exactly. What? They're back at the base and they're filling everybody in on this mass infestation train plan and they're thinking about what to do. And really, fairly quickly, Marco floats the idea of just like loading a train up with a nuke or a bomb and blowing up the whole thing. And nobody can really like think of a better plan. I mean, they consider that, and then it's kind of like, well, it just sort of makes the most sense to really like attack that crucial resource of theirs that they need.
The Yeerks messed up in the sense that it's an escalation of their plans, but in the past there was a bottleneck to how you could enter the Yeerkpool, and they had such great security at every entrance to the Yeerkpool that it really did make the Animorphs think twice about any attack on the Yeerkpool. But having mass transit and multiple entries into the Yeerkpool, and them being like brand new caves and tunnel systems and stuff that probably don't have the level of security as the normal entrances, it's like a perfect storm. And Marco's idea makes sense because of that.
Oh yeah. That's. I mean, it's totally a plan that they could have never done before. I'm sure if ramrodding a bomb down into the Yeerkpool was an option earlier, they might have thought about it.
They should have taken over the blade ship and then just like crashed it into the earth over the Yeerkpool, and two birds with one stone.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. Or they could have come up with some plot involving the, I don't know, Chi or something.
Just the Chi can't fight, but just set up a Chi at every entrance to the Yeerkpool and make them stand there and not move, and no one would be able to move them because they're future android dogs. So it'd block every entrance. Done.
Don't they have a self-destruct mechanism? Couldn't they technically
Don't worry about
blow up the Chi?
No. No.
Create a large-scale explosion?
The Yeerks would be like, we can't get past this robot. No, it's not going to work.
Well, the really cool thing about like the setup or the central conflict, I guess, for this plot is Axe, and whether or not he still feels like working with his human friends and the humans in general, and tensions are building between all of the characters, because as soon as the bomb thing is thrown out there, of course Cassie has objections because of safety reasons, and that causes fractures between her and Axe and her and Jake, and it leads to a big spillover event finally, where it's revealed that Cassie was the one who gave the morphing technology to the Yeerks, and this hits Axe really hard because the Andalites really don't take kindly to traitors, people they deem traitors.
Yeah, relationships were already pretty stressed and strained before this book, but again, it's great that we're in Axe's perspective for this book, because to him, it's not just a betrayal by Cassie, which he says, like, you know, he can't feel anything but hatred towards her in that moment. He sees it, the fact that they're even continuing a conversation with her and listening to her input after that revelation, he's ready to turn on all the Animorphs and humanity in general. He's done. Pretty big deal. And I like how, as we get further in the book, we realize, just as he does, that his brother did the same thing that Cassie did, and that's what brings him around, you know?
Oh, that's a very good way of looking at it. I was envisioning this book, or the feeling I got after it was like seeing Axe go to his lowest depths of not liking or distrusting humans, and then watching him kind of work in real time to reason why he actually does love them and has learned so much from them and has come to sympathize with them. And as he even says, you know, I don't actually hate you, Cassie. Like, and I think she knew that. There's a very sweet kind of moment for Axe, or arc to his character that's, I think, kind of properly concluded here with him deciding, you know, what side he needs to take.
Again, it's him. It's almost him turning into his brother. I mean, it's him, because obviously Elfangor went through a whole adventure that made him kind of appreciate humanity and want to save them. And Axe goes through almost a similar adventure in this book, reckoning with his feelings about Andalites, about humans, and it really, for the first time, he's relating to his brother on an emotional level, which is like, yeah, it's really sweet to see that arc happen. And there's a moment later we'll talk about specifically with Cassie that I really liked, but let's move along. I think we're going to get stopped every 2 seconds of this book because it's so good.
No, you got a good point. And Axe's relationship with the whole team is already pretty strained, like because of the whole bombing incident. And not following Jake's orders, you know, there's
knocking Jake out.
This book really drives the tension between him and Cassie, but also him and Rachel. I mean, he has nothing but nasty things to say about Rachel through most of this book, and you get the impression that, you know, they wouldn't necessarily be hanging out. If you think about it, X's real only friends at this point is Tobias and maybe Marco, whose real joy is kind of probably making fun of him more than, you know, real friend stuff.
About Rachel, Axe even says that if she were an Andalite and they were in the military, Rachel would have been, you know, like kicked out a long time ago and like put in a special place because she's become so bloodthirsty and psychotic.
Yeah. Again, nothing kind to say about her. But after all of this information has slipped out, Axe is like in a really bad mood, and he's like, no, I'm out. I can't even deal with this. And he goes and grabs his phone, and he's got to go call his Andalite buddies. So he goes and calls up in the middle of the night Prince Jaham Estelan Forlan.
You forgot to mention that he morphs the book cover animal raccoon to do so.
I didn't even mean to mention it. It's so irrelevant.
It's relevant in the sense it's the book cover. Like, it's not even like something they use later on to like solve a problem or something. He literally just walks through the woods and says like, "Oh, this is one of my favorite new morphs because the hands are kind of the same to mine."
Yeah.
And it's the only time in the whole book he morphs raccoon. It's crazy.
So, of course, yeah, this is the scene of him calling the Andalites, and he gives a little kind of sort of recap or an update on the situation about what's going on Earth with the Yeerks. And the Andalites, their big plan to save Earth turns out to be quarantine, which, as Axe understands, it's actually going to be another genocide.
Yeah, they because of Earth and how many humans there are and how many potential hosts and the sector of the galaxy it's in and all of that, he reasons that the Andalites won't actually be able to quarantine it. It's too close to other planets. It's too spread out. So he knows that to be a lie, and that it'll eventually lead to them just wiping out humans and a potential host for the Yeerks, which sounds very Andalite to me.
Yeah, well, and I like the way that they phrased it. They said, we're going to help out. We're going to come in. We're going to do a little quarantine. We're going to mediate peaceful symbiosis between the humans and the Yeerks. And it's all going to be good. And, Axe gets cut off by some Yeerk bug fighters that have intercepted the signal. And Axe doesn't get to tell them about the Yeerks having the morph technology yet. And I don't think he was going to at that point. So he's kind of sort of still playing a double agent of sorts, figuring out where his loyalties should lie. And he's not yet ready to take this information to his friends. But he's not feeling very good about either camps that he's fallen in with at this moment.
Yeah, and I mean the idea of even if the Andalites weren't lying, the idea of aiding a symbiotic relationship is pretty messed up, because we're, at the end of the day, humans still aren't going to have a choice in that situation. It's just going to be, all right, you guys are hosts now. Have fun.
Yeah, it's very much like sacrificing the humans.
Whoa, it's like the sacrifice.
Oh my gosh, do you think that's what it's alluding to?
I have no idea what the sacrifice is referencing otherwise, so maybe.
Oh, because I just pulled that out of nowhere, but yeah, wow. Maybe.
Well, if you think about Axe, if he makes any sacrifice, maybe it's talking about his Andalite allegiances. Maybe that's the sacrifice he's making, or he's choosing to go down into the Yeerk pool. That's a sacrifice. I don't know.
There could be a lot of things. The idea that they've come up with in order to acquire the amount of explosives that it would take to blow up the Yeerk pool is mostly conveniently all located in the nearby National Guard base that Marco and his dad were able to find on the map. And Cassie's, again, just not having a good time with any of this mission plan. So her and Jake get into this big argument here, and this is where the secret comes out that she was the one who gave the morphine cube away. And it actually, in a weird way, it leads to the reconciliation of Jake and Cassie. Mm-hmm. Because he's mad at her, everybody else instantly is mad at her, and Jake is the only one who switches over to comforting her.
And he kind of realizes that in every other decision Cassie makes, he trusts her. And he even says in this book that he feels like next to him, she's the closest who thinks like him and has the same like emotional decisions and leadership skills, which we've never heard Cassie talked about like that before. So that was pretty cool. And then after this scene, we get Axe confronting her, right? Making her talk about it and asking her directly why she did it, right?
Yeah. They slip away after that public scene, and he asks her why she'd betray everybody, and she gives kind of a long answer.
Well, I want to talk about this for a second because, again, a book I hadn't read before. I think this might be one of the most important aspects of the entire series, like this story point. Cassie says to Axe that she gave it away because she doesn't know exactly why, but she feels like giving the morphing technology is actually going to lead to the Yeerks no longer being an enemy. She, we know Ciro's kindness, we know all of that, but she thinks that the Yeerks having another option, because she's already aware of the Yeerks who have secretly been working against the Yeerk invasion this entire time. She's seen other examples of Yeerks who don't want to just infest people and be parasites. So by giving them technology, it gives them this third option that they've never had before. And I love it because it basically flips the whole series on its head. The idea that Ciro's kindness, giving technology to another alien species, doesn't have to lead to them becoming enemies if you take it one step further and really share the technology and really share civilization with another species. They could become your greatest ally. They could become truly a better species. It's a really important, moment in the entire series, and I can't believe I missed out on it.
Yeah, totally. Cassie's onto something here, because this whole resource war could have been renegotiated, or things could have worked out differently had they just given the Yeerks maybe non-parasitic bodies or something. I don't know. Make them andalites. Who knows?
Well, if you think about it, the real world equivalent, it'd be like a U.S. soldier or general handing a nuke over to Japan in the end of World War II. Like, our greatest weapon, the thing that ended the war, if one of our allies handed it to the enemies.
I think weapon type plays a big significant.
It does. I don't know how you could, if somebody came to the U.S. force and was like, hey, if we give a nuclear device away, the Japanese or the enemies are going to use it to, create sustainable power or something like that. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy. And it's something that would never happen. And that person would be, executed for treason instantly.
Yeah, I mean, in a real-world scenario, probably. And I could imagine why the Andalites would be such dicks and not want to give out their morphing technology, even though it could make all of these alien species whose lives suck, like the Texans, they could make them all better. Yep. They could just fix all the crappy
We'll talk
things.
more about that in the next book, definitely.
Oh, 100%. But like you said, this is a great start. A great foot in the door for this whole, maybe the morphing technology could be shared properly tangent that will go on here towards the end of the series. But their conversation very much leaves Axe more confused than anything. Luckily, Tobias comes in here and also reveals that he was spying on Axe's phone call the other night. And while Axe is having his forlorn "do I trust or like humans" thoughts, Axe gave him a couple words of advice, and I just want to read one little paragraph of it, because I think it doesn't apply to just aliens situations. It applies to a lot more. Let me see if you, the dear listener, draw something from this. Okay.
Got an incoming live read.
Yeah. So Tobias, they're talking about whether or not sharing DNA is okay. So that's the context here. But Tobias says, "This is too hard to explain right now." Tobias said, "I just mean that we don't really have time-tested rules for dealing with these issues, like the morality of acquiring someone's DNA. So we have to see what works and what doesn't. We can't afford to get so locked into one idea that we defend it to the death without really knowing if that idea works in the real world." So, like I said, that could be applied to so many other things beyond whether it's okay to take somebody's human DNA,
Well, I think it goes the root of at least what the Applegates are trying to say about humanity. The Yeerks are very stuck in their ways. The Andalites are very stuck in their ways. The thing that separates humanity is that we question our own ideologies, which is very unique, within this universe. So that's kind of what makes us special, is that we can believe something for years and years, and then start to question it and change our minds.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I just think it's a good piece of advice. Don't get too stuck in one frame of mind that you rule out other possibilities, or you straight up don't even know that other possibilities exist.
If you've ever gone on Twitter and fought tooth and nail for some dumb movie plot that you hated, think again. Maybe you're not bettering the world by only sticking into that one thought.
Dare to be stupid. That's right. The next scene is kind of just like the start of this big roller coaster ride to the end of this book, and it was really hard to put down. But the Animorphs are putting together their biggest raid party yet. Of over 30 soldiers. They've got Animorphs, they've got the auxiliaries, a whole bunch of Hork-Bajir, and now we get these awesome scenes where their parents are joining them on missions. We've got Tobias's mom, we've got Marco's dad and mom, former, Visitor One, Eva, and did I say Cassie's parents? Cassie's parents are there. Yeah.
Rachel's mom.
And Rachel's mom. So basically all the parents except for Jake's, who's are missing.
Yeah. And I will say, I really liked how they built up how scared everyone was going in the mission. I mean, like, the Animorphs have gone into some pretty terrifying missions before. They really thought they were going to, like, lose some numbers here. Lose some main characters. Like, they built it up as in, like, this either works or a lot of us are going to die.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about this point in the series, is now that the cast is more than just the main kids, all of these side characters are technically expendable. If not dying, getting captured by the Yeerks and then turned into controllers.
If I have a regret of the series so far, towards the end, is I wish we could have gotten a book from James' perspective or one of the auxiliary Animorphs. I mean,
we're to do an episode that is just the I want that book ideas that we had to pitch, because an episode from James's perspective would have been killer, and I think you and I could have both come up with some pretty cool concepts. Because
he's a really interesting character. He's the only character in the series who, again, started out paralyzed and the morphine healed him, and he has to still live as a paralyzed person in the hospital. Mm-hmm. That's messed up, and would have been really interesting to get his perspective. And the fact that he's dealing with the fact that the Animorphs barely trust him, because the last time they trusted somebody with this technology, they tried to kill him. So he's always kind of like living on the edges of the team,
It would have been really awesome to have a book that followed him as he, returned to the hospital and played the role. Mm-hmm. And then just over the course of the book, you slowly saw him catch glimpses or like pieces of like the other Animorphs mentioning David, and like he could just put it together without them outright telling them like, oh, we tried this earlier. And I can't remember if they actually mentioned it before.
I think what they do in the book, I think they talk about how they trusted someone before and it didn't work out.
It could be a whole book about him kind of learning that story and being like,
well, it could also be a book. It could also be a book where he says the wrong thing or does something on a mission that makes them not trust him, and then the Animorphs like come after him. So it'd be a reverse David situation where he's like worried the Animorphs are around every corner and watching him and like don't trust him anymore. That would have been cool.
The end of the series wouldn't have enough time for a filler book quite like that, but just a little one-off with him to expand on him and his team and the dynamic between, it's so late in the series, but I want to see another character become a leader.
If I can go on one more tangent, how interesting would it have been? Okay. How interesting would it have been if one of these auxiliary Animorphs, who might have been like terminal, like didn't have a lot time to live, dealing with the idea of them morphing and turning into a Nothlit to survive their terminal illness. That would have been a really interesting book.
Yeah, there you go. See, we're going to have a huge list of these what if we had this? What if we had this story? What if we had a book where the Animorphs didn't do a mission and they just hung out as animals all day and ate pie?
I don't want that book.
Yeah, you do. You can't deny it. So, or maybe I should have said spam because of this scene coming up. But the Animorphs are on their way to this mission, right? And it's cool. Incorporating the parents is a good idea. Marco's dad plays like MVP of this mission with his acting skills, and flags down a passing convoy of National Guard trucks. And they just kind of pretend that they're lost hikers in distress, and then everybody hides out and hitches a ride on the trucks, and they get inside the base. And once they're in, it's kind of like the search and find mission. They're not really concerned with like really masking their presence there. Like as soon as they fan out, one of the very first things Axe does is go to check out the warehouse that he was told to. And right off the bat, he just demorphs in front of some people, some soldiers. And they have a pretty good reaction, all things considered. In fact, I think the reactions that they get from all of the soldiers and like civilians, everybody that they demorph in front of is always really interesting from this point on. So it starts a little bit of an action scene, barely an action scene. I mean, they dispose of these guards pretty quick, and it kind of just leads to a gag of them finding a whole warehouse full of spam.
Yeah, rations and you know, the supplies of the base. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hunt for the weapons they're looking for, which is good. If it would have been convenient where they got them, it would have been less realistic. So it's still kind of weird that they're all in one place, but you know, if it's a sizable base, and I don't know why they have so much dynamite on hand, but you know, it's definitely realistic that you can put enough dynamite together and enough explosives to equal the equivalent blast of a you know, megaton nuke or a 50 megaton nuke. So that part works out, and yeah, they finally find the right warehouse and trying to figure out.
James who finds it.
And they're trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do we get these things out of here?
Yeah, they had all kinds of math figured out. Apparently, I wouldn't have gone that far, but they did. So they figure out exactly how much of the explosives they need to take and load up on this truck to get out of there. And it's kind of like a tense, like hurry up and go, because you know we're still doing something highly illegal, and you know there's the threat of something going wrong, and something does go wrong, because during their escape, the National Guard captain shows up and kind of cuts everybody off and gives Rachel a nice opportunity to display exactly how crazy she is as she yanks the steering wheel from her mom and puts her foot down on the pedal to try and run the dude down, and is only stopped at the last second by Axe.
Yeah, I like it because Rachel's literally overpowering her mom. I mean, that's not only is she going crazy and wanting to just run them over so they can get out and be the hero or whatever, but you know, the person who raised her mother, she's literally overpowering her just to do this thing. And it's, I don't know, emotionally and relationship wise, I thought that was really interesting, and it's just another way to shows
you
how far she's gone.
Yeah, you're right. It shows you the depths that she's sunk to now, where it's not just when she's out on a mission in Animorph mode, which I guess she technically is here, but you would think that her mother would have a little bit of an influence over her behavior when they're together, and that is not the case. She's still going psycho.
Now, the scene with the Colonel is interesting because you think, like... Captain, sorry. It's interesting because not only do we learn about the governor from the last book and her fate, the fact that it was wildly covered up as a trick, or, you know, her speech to the world was a hoax, yeah. But we really think like, oh, there's no way they're going to talk their way out of this. There's no way this isn't going to end in a big fight like we're expecting, like happens in so many Animorphs books similar to this, except they're going to be fighting mostly humans as far as they know. But I really liked that Rachel's mom, who has been a thorn in their side ever since they, rescued her and freed her, she has a moment here where she gets to kind of save the day.
Yeah, it was a great scene. First of all, because Jake and Axe go and fill the captain in on all the details that they, of course, need to know. And it's just such a great scene of everything going as right or as well as it could when they reveal this huge truth to people. And the fact that Rachel's mom got to come in and vouch for Jake and give credibility to everything he's saying to this guy is cool for two reasons. One, because like you said, she's just been nothing but kind of an antagonistic joke, more or less, on lawyers. And now she's doing that. She's being useful. And
we also get the as far as things going right for the Animorphs, we even get the one controller who's there, or at least who reveals himself, take a shot at Jake or about to shoot him, which validates their story even more to the captain.
Yep. It's just serving for more proof of what Jake has to say. So the cool thing is, it totally works, and they get this Captain Olston, which is super close to my last name, on their side, and he decides to help them fill up the truck, gives them all the explosives and
multiple trucks.
They are still on this ticking clock of a mission, and when they're done with that, the team gets their like tender goodbye moments with all of their parents, and it's sweet, it's bittersweet. But Jake, who has no one, is left to pair off with Axe, who similarly has no one, and it's just kind of sweet and bittersweet.
It's a nice moment between them. I do really like that the captain is not only letting them go, him and his forces are going to join them on the mission, which is awesome. We've never seen that before.
Them working with government troops.
Yeah, it's really cool. So they take the trucks and they head downtown to find a subway tunnel that's connected to the Yerk pool, and this again goes really well for them. They find one that only has, it's not one of the loading zones where they're hauling people in. It's just one of the ones they're going to use or have already used, and is pretty much clear other than a few controllers.
Yeah, it's like non-stop action scenes from here on to the end of the book. They have to battle their way down into the subway, and when the train shows up and deposits all these controllers, they have a bunch of morph capable ones. So there's like a rhino and a polar bear.
Yeah, we talked last episode about how you didn't think they morphed anything big. We got a polar bear and a rhino in this one, so they're going full Battlemorphs.
Exactly, and even a surprising moment for Jake, who's prompted by Rachel to attack them before they completed their morph, and Jake says, "No, we give them a fair fight." And earlier, Jake said something really, really nice, I guess, where they're debating the morality of what's involved with blowing up the Yerk pool and all of that, and he said, we're going to adopt a new motto from now on, which is we defeat the Yerks, we don't become them.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a driving force from here on out. And it's actually going to tie into something in the next book. That's a big event for
one thing,
them not becoming the Yerks.
One thing we haven't mentioned yet is how Cassie got on board with this whole plan. Is they decided, talking in that discussion about morality, they decided that they would warn the Yerks once they got down into the pool. Like, they already have such a tight timeline. They decided that once they get down there and crash the train in, they're going to warn the Yerks and give them 5 minutes to get everyone out. Which, if you're trying to cause as much damage as possible, they shouldn't have done that, but it's a way to, again, separate themselves from their enemy.
Yeah, very good point. That was the sort of morality clause that made Cassie go along with the mission.
Before they jump into the train, though, I want to point out they fight these controllers, and this is the moment that a lot of the controllers turned into wolves. And when the National Guard comes down to help them, they just open fire on most of the animals. I don't know how they differentiated the Animorphs from them, but they killed a ton of these wolves, and Axe just assumes that they couldn't tell Cassie from the other wolves, and that she got caught in the fire. And Axe, it's really great because it's real. We talked about this being a real-time seeing Axe change his mind about humanity and what it means, and like their decision to give the morphing cube. This is the first time we see just a blatant reaction from Axe, where he's just overcome with emotion and worry for Cassie. And this cements, him worried about her being dead and like grieving for her, cements his ideology and putting in his card with the Animorphs.
I never got to tell her I loved her. Yeah, exactly. No. For one thing, I think that hopefully Jake discussed their fighting tactics and gave Olston all their information for like, okay, so when we get there, we all have these battlemorphs. Be on the lookout for these animals and avoid them with your gunfire, please. And by the way, we've got like 17 or 20 some auxiliary Animorphs, all in these morphs that you're going to want to avoid too. But
look, one of the auxiliary Animorphs is a chinchilla. We told him it's a terrible battlemorph, but he really likes it. So just don't shoot the chinchilla.
If you see one over there taking an ash bath, or whatever they're called, just ignore it. Yeah. But like you said, it really is a beautiful moment. Yeah. And they Jake and Cassie just like reappear, and they're like, come on, X, we gotta go do the thing, And so we knew Cassie wasn't going to be dead here, but it did give Axe that moment of reaction where he realized there might be some loss, and I think it made him realize his true feelings. But after all of the fighting subsides, they need to make this decision about who's gonna ride the train down to the Yerk pool with the bombs and make sure that they're properly delivered and that the detonator is timed to go off. And as it comes down to it, they discuss it a little bit, and Marco, Cassie, and Axe are the lucky ones that get picked solely because Jake was absolutely necessary. They couldn't risk him. And I think they just didn't want Rachel to go because she wasn't going to be the right person to do what was required here.
Yeah, she's making some poor choices, some poor life choices that they've seen recently. So she's too much of a wild card for this mission. And it's crazy to see 3 Animorphs go into this situation being like, we don't really see a great way to get out of this alive, but we'll try.
Yeah. This could be one of those goodbyes, mm-hmm. If things don't go well. But it's a very tender moment, and there's just so many good character moments in this book. It's hard to believe this is a ghostwritten book. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know that, this one is. And then the next one, well, all the rest of the books are K.A. Applegate.
I have to think, though, that the Applegates probably had a heavier hand on these last few books, though. Besides the ones they actually wrote, I mean, these ones leading up to it, they were probably a lot more involved in the outlines and kind of some of the moments.
I think their outline for this one must have been extremely detailed, especially as it pertains to the characters and how they're feeling about each other. A lot of that in this.
Yeah, it's a really important book for their mindset and their teamwork going into the end of the fight.
Right. It is kind of like, in the beginning, it seemed very much like a whole breakdown, a degradation of the Animorphs team. And then through these missions, they really aren't any worse off than they'd ever been. I mean, it might be some of the best teamwork I've ever seen from the team, actually. But they go on fighting the controllers on the train en route to the pool. And after this fight, they have to make the decision again who's going to be the one to stay and arm the bomb, while the others just kind of escape and help free people.
Axe learns how to flip a coin to decide something, which is nice.
Yeah, he learns what a coin flip is. The scene where they're crashing into the Yerk pool is kind of cool, because to survive that, they just go bug. They just go like flee. And if you think about it, that when theoretically, I think, wouldn't kill a bug. Would a
Cassie,
bug die in a train accident?
Cassie goes roach. Marco goes flea. I think Axe goes roach as well, doesn't he? Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah, I think they were roach.
And then Axe has the extra complication of he has to make sure like his finger is the last thing that morphs, so that he can push the button right before it crashes.
Yeah, sounds like more of a Cassie job, but oh well.
Yeah, and yeah, I think they're just like, we don't know if we're gonna survive this, but the gravitational forces shouldn't kill us or rip us apart, so we'll try.
So the good news is, if we do survive it, we are in the Yerk pool.
Yeah, and yeah, this is an amazing scene. If there was ever any kind of live action adaptation, this would be incredible to see the train hit the stop and then jackknife flip over into the pool. I mean,
so one
amazing
thing I wasn't clear on was how many cars. Did it ever specify how many cars were on this train? Because I had a hard time picturing it. Is it one car hitting the thing and going, or is it a whole connection of train cars?
I pictured it's a normal like New York
disaster.
It's a normal like New York subway. If they're in like San Francisco or something, that's gonna be. It's not gonna be like a monorail. It's gonna be a series of train cars. So probably like
You're
5.
in California, and I didn't think California had subways.
Yeah, L.A. and San Francisco have underground subways.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't know about like San Diego. I think the inference is that the Animorphs live in San Diego. So I don't know if San Diego has a network, but they've written most of the rest of the series to line up with a Southern California city. So I can't imagine this is any different.
Oh, I thought they were in Northern California.
Who knows? I mean, they're never super clear on it.
Foresty.
Well, there's mountains and forests. Yeah. Maybe somewhere
make vague geographical statements.
I'd like to apologize for my podcaster's use of the word vague, because it's a very Minnesotan pronunciation of that word.
Come on!
Vague would be how I think most people would pronounce it.
What you talking about?
But anyway, this is an amazing scene. One thing you pointed out that you loved, and I agree with, is they morph back to human really quick, or Andalite. And Cassie comes up out of the water, pulling a Yerk out of her ear, right before it gets in.
I could have had more scenes of that throughout the series. I really do think it's a terrifying thought to be submerged into the Yerk pool, and they could have done that, once a book, and I think it'd have been frightening each time. But it's great to see here. Yeah. Anytime a character takes a drink in the old Yerk pool is kind of a frightening thing, but she did really well, I think, for having just survived a train crash into what is often described as like a molten sludge full of slugs that are trying to weigh you down and get your ear holes below water.
Yeah.
They start to free the captives from their cages, and Cassie stands up on the sinking train and gives everybody a good warning that they have 4 minutes to get the heck out of there. And while they're running around and just trying to help people get out of the chaos, it's beautiful. There's like other controllers that are helping people get out. You see, like they had no idea of knowing who was a controller and who wasn't.
Yeah, Axe.
But the people that they were freeing started freeing people.
Yeah, Axe was really moved by this, and it's just another instance of him being like, well, maybe what Cassie said has some merit. If these controllers are willing to free hosts, and probably not voluntary hosts, then maybe there is some hope I haven't thought of within the Yeerk race.
Yeah, exactly. It does kind of evoke a whole other scene that's in with that theme of the book, that seeing like humans and everybody just kind of working together regardless of what side they're on, and it's over really quickly. I will say it's funny because Visor 1 starts to rise out of the Yeerk pool.
Yeah, we get our normal Visor 1 appearance where, you know, he just coincidentally shows up, but it's a turn on that in the sense that he shows up and they're like, hey, Visor, we're all going to die in like 3 minutes, so bring it on. You know, you can either run or you can fight us and die with us. We don't even care. And Visor's like, see you later.
Yeah, I imagine it. You know, he's in this like giant, it's described
octopus.
as like a tentacled octopus kind of thing. I imagine it as like one of those big Koroks from the Legend of Zelda series.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of those squid things. And he just kind of pops up and is like, I'm going to get you. And then Marco's like, taps his
we don't
wrist,
care.
Like, and he just kind of sinks back in. No, not this time.
It's like an animatronic on Jungle Cruise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good description. Just like that.
Yeah.
So there is no Visor 1 battle for this book, conveniently, which is good because the rest of the 2 books in this series are going to deal with that pretty well.
I do think this next scene is also pretty terrifying, where they talk about Yeerk, human, Hork-Bajir. Everyone is just pouring into these tunnels that lead out of the Yeerk pool and trampling each other. People are probably dying, and you know, it's scary chaos, like the kind of chaos you don't see very often, where they know they're about to die or they think they're about to die, and they don't care who's in front of them. You know, it's
like
horde
a death
mentality. Yeah, it's even scarier when you think about the fact like Hork-Bajir and Taxons are in that mix. And then tons of animals, because all of the morph capable controllers have morph birds and other things to run out of here. So it's probably
a whole flock of birds getting down the tunnels.
I mean, it's a weird, scary bloodbath.
I wish they had actually given a little bit more information on how many of them got out, because it's never really stated how successful their evacuation efforts were here at the end.
You have to imagine thousands of people, controllers and humans, died here, you know?
Oh, yeah. I imagine the casualties were greater than the survivors.
Here's one thing.
The lucky ones that made it out were the Animorphs.
This might be more into the book talk or beginning of next book talk. But one thing they never explain is, you know, the Yeerk pool blows up and it creates this giant crater that consists of like downtown, the mall. They probably killed a lot of people on the surface with this.
Oh God,
this
yeah,
explosion.
Certainly.
Yeah, like
that, and that's the end scene here in the book, is them surveying the damage, that sinkhole that you just mentioned, and the massive crater that's engulfing their whole town. And I like you said, there were so many cars, people driving by on the street,
because it's not the suburbs or anything, and maybe it was like, you know, middle of the night or early morning or something, so it would be less people. But if anyone lives in apartments downtown or anything like that, they're all gone, you know?
They did say a lot of it was the mall campus, so...
The mall in downtown.
Took up a
because
portion.
They say that the skyscrapers are, like, falling into each other and stuff, so it's a decent amount of downtown.
Right, and you know, I just imagine this scene really well as they're flying around. They come to land on one of these skyscrapers that's fallen apart, and as they're sitting there surveilling the crater that used to be their town, the blade ship kind of hovers into sight, right in front of the moon, and it's like showdown for the final boss. It's like teasing it right there. And I think this is where the whole point of the book is, you know, X comes to decide that if his human friends are willing to blow up most of their town to save humanity, then they might be all right after all. And so he's turned it back to his more favoring opinion on humans.
It's very much like many of the ghostwritten books. It's very much resetting the board as far as like their relationships and how everyone's feeling. But I think it does it in such an interesting and layered way. I'm okay with it. I don't think it's just resetting because now the Applegates are about to take over and end the series. I think it was like a really smart and clever book and how it handled everything. So, even though and the board is flipped over in the fact that no one can call it a hoax now when a giant, spaceship parks itself over a major U.S. city.
Right, and especially after most of the downtown area collapsed into a giant sinkhole and there's alien corpses laying around, and it's undeniable now. But I really appreciate the kind of cycle of Axe's character arc here, and I think they put him in a good spot as far as his friendship with the team goes for going into the finale. I'm glad they left off his previous book with him disobeying orders, and it had seemed like his character arc was going to be that of like, will he or won't he be on the human side in the end, where it comes down to it. And this book, I think, kind of really solely put him back on the side of the Animorphs and the humans, and just the fact that he's there and involved in the moment, and everything seems so wrong, but yet it's so right.
Well, I'm gonna say let's jump straight into our reviews, because I think you're already starting to get into yours. So why don't you go first?
Yeah, if you want me to, I will. And this book was such a blast. I truly regret that I think I only read it once in my life, which was the great college reread of 2009 or whenever we did that. And I breezed through it really quickly. It's not to say I didn't enjoy it back then, but I was on a mission to just speed read the entire series, right? So I was really only paying attention to the big, what happened in this book. Okay, they blew up the Yerk pool. Great, that's it. Reading it as an adult, I realized just how much stuff is crammed into this book. The character interactions between Axe and Cassie, Axe and Jake, Axe and Rachel, Axe and Tobias. The only thing they don't care about is Axe and Marco. And there's plenty of other good character interactions involving the parents, involving the new army government agent people that, they might be one-off characters, but they are still so welcome. Animorphs has always done one-off characters so well that we often find ourselves saying, oh man, I wish they would have brought back so-and-so from that one book. The kid from the Outback, I wish, Australian Andy or whatever his name was, I wish he'd come back. Or whatever, and Captain Olston is no different. Like a smart, competent person who is taking orders from Jake, and like that's feasibly more of a character that I could see on following. And yeah, I mean, it's just a solid book. Like the setup, like we said, it follows the formula to a point, but doesn't stick to it so much that it's predictable. The way that the formula might have worked in the past was when they infiltrated the base for the bombs. They'd have gotten caught, led to a battle, and then again it would have been some reason for them to evade the government or the army. Seeing them actually teaming up with the authorities that they used to avoid is really cathartic, I think, for us.
Yeah.
Because they spent so much of the series trying to make this a secret invasion. And now that they're playing by completely different rules, it's almost like an entirely different series. I mean, early game Animorphs, the secret invasion stuff, is so different from the public war stuff here that we're getting at the end. And like I said, I think this book just does so much justice for Axe as a character. For his final book in the series, that is solely him, I should say. I just really dig what they did with it. And I know you're probably going to have nice things to say, and that's cool. But I couldn't more highly recommend, if you're rereading the series, not even just for like I want only the books that progress the plot, because there's no doubt this thing does that. All these last ones are going to do that. This one, I really want to call attention to the character interactions and just how fun it is to have all the characters at their maximum personality. We are getting maximum Rachel at her most deranged. We are getting a maximum depressed Jake who is soldiering on and actually running into some successes and like being an active leader and just doing a really good job. We get Cassie, who is not only the voice of morality, but she is bringing in new arguments into the table and just, breaking the tropes that they used to be. I think it's a solid book, and I can't praise it highly enough or more. And I want to hear you praise it. So I'm gonna drop my score. It is going to be an 5 out of 5.
Whoa!
Raccoon late night calls.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna hear me dump on this book. I'm gonna do some bold takes though. I'm gonna say not only is this the best, most important Axe book in the series, I think this might be the best, most important Cassie book in the series. Which there's definitely some Cassie books that are well known throughout the fans and really important, but more so than any other book, I think this one has convinced me that Cassie won the war. Her ideas and her ideology and her ethics that we made fun of so much at the beginning of the series, and everybody kind of talks like a joke. Her soul and what she chooses to do and be as an Animorph, is probably the only thing that saved them and saved the galaxy. It's never been highlighted more than in this book in my mind, which is crazy. I mean, we tour on Cassie all the time. And then Axe, not only does this cover all of our favorite aspects of Axe, other than him dealing with human morph, we didn't see that in this book, but his relationship with the Andalite government, his relationship with the rest of the Animorphs and feeling like an outsider, his making decisions based on his alien ethics and morality, and specifically being an Andalite. We see all of that in this book, and we see one of the best character arcs of anyone in all the books in this. Him, real time, changing his mind on what kind of Animorph he wants to be, what kind of soldier he wants to be, is amazing. And we really haven't gotten character arcs like that for anyone else in the series. We've seen changes and we've seen decisions being made and stuff like that, but this is a full character arc that's in depth and has a lot of emotional reasoning and highlights to it. So it's crazy to me that this book existed and I never checked it out before. I'm less of a fan for have not found this book earlier and dived into it. So with all of that said, I have to give this a 5 out of 5 jackknifing trains. It's incredible. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's one of the most important books in the series, and one of the darkest, most action-packed, most well-choreographed action books in the series. Like, the action's very clear and defined what's going on. It's exciting. It ramps up and down. It's got to be one of the best ghost-written books in the series as well. It's on point every step of the way. So I can't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, it's totally warranted. Everything that we're saying is on par. I think we hadn't even really brought up Axe's relationship with Elfangor and like how that equates into this either.
I brought it up.
You touched on it, yes,
Yeah.
of course. But that's another very poignant thing is, he wants to be so badly like his brother, because his brother is so famous and well respected and everything. But he knows his brother did this terrible thing and gave away the precious morphing technology that, to anybody else gives it away, they're traitors that need to be executed. But this is like his inner conflict where my brother's the greatest celebrity person, can't do anything wrong, yet he clearly did this thing that we all say is bad, and now Cassie did that thing, and I'm super mad at her.
Yeah.
But it's so complex when you think about it.
If you think about all of the Animorphs series-long arcs, you have Rachel dealing with the fact that she's realizing she's bloodthirsty and in love with the war. You have Marco and his mother and trying to free her. You have Jake and his brother Tom. Like, these are the series arcs. Axe's arc was always understanding why his brother did what he did. That was his arc from the beginning. Not understanding why he gave them morphing technology and kind of like falling in love with humanity, kind of gets it. This is the book where he finally understands and pulls closer to his brother because of the events of this book and finally understands him, which is a big deal. It's definitely a more, it's not a huge payoff like Marco freeing his mom finally after all those years. But it is very much a huge character moment for Axe. So it's just cool to see.
It's mostly because it's an internal conflict. So the resolution is just him, being more positive.
I could have used the ghost of Elthanger coming back and finally, brother, you understand me. And then he shoots off with the time matrix. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think we had a blast reading this, and we're getting to it.
I gotta tell you, it was so good that the next day I picked up our next book, The Answer, and I already read it. So
wow.
We're looking forward to putting these things out now because we've got a lot to say about these last couple of books. And if we're super lucky, we'll have some cool guest co-hosts that will also have a lot to say on a number of topics, including Animorphs.
Nate!
Nate, friend of the show.
No, yeah.
Famous Nate.
We don't want to announce anything yet because nothing's like locked in, but hopefully we'll be able to get some cool, very much franchise relevant guest hosts to come join us.
I would still love to get the actors from the original show together for an episode.
Yeah, that would be really cool to figure out a way to. I mean, people have reached out to them before and they've done like interviews and stuff, but I don't know if they've shown up on any podcasts.
No, well, maybe a full reunion for the first time ever would be the appropriate setting. That would be the appropriate setting and time to get all of that, just the kids, and maybe the guy who played Visor 3 in his human morph, because
we don't even know if that guy's alive anymore. He was pretty old in the 90s. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure he's still around.
Well, I don't want to overpromise on that department, but I think we can all agree there's some exciting episodes coming up, and we're happy that, I mean, we're not happy that the podcast might end, but happy to have this living directory of our thoughts and feelings on this series. And we've been there for a long time doing this podcast. Back when there weren't any other podcasts, there were YouTube essays and things like that. But as far as on iTunes, we were one of the first, if not the first, podcast, and a lot of podcasts have come and go since.
Was that 2014? We started. I think it was 2014.
Yeah, we're not like bragging or trying to like show off when we changed the name of the podcast to the original Animorphs Podcast. We're just trying to tell everybody how old we are and that we've been trying to finish this for so long. So if you've been with us from the beginning, I'm glad we could finally get these out to you and finish our promise of finishing the series, and hopefully we have some fun episodes coming up.
Heck yeah, that's the plan anyway. So, again, if you want to stick with us to the end, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Thoughtspeakcast. And leave us some ratings and or reviews on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. That helps us grow the show.
I talk a lot about iTunes, and iTunes is obviously important to any podcast, but whatever player I listen to, like I use Pocket Casts, like that app and stuff. So any podcast app you use and listen to, leaving a rating on there boosts our show and gets us more people, and you don't have to pay anything. If you do want to pay something, our Patreon's great. We also have I think it's like a tip jar on our Anchor page, which people can use. It's like straight PayPal and stuff, so that's easy. But just, whatever level you enjoy the show, support us in whatever way you're comfortable with. We never want to put anybody out or make them pay something they can't afford or something. So we just appreciate you listening and enjoying our content. So
I don't think we've ever mentioned it, but the entire show is on YouTube as well. So if you prefer YouTube, hit that up and maybe watch some of your old favorite episodes. Leave a comment for us on there too. It'd be super cool to grow the YouTube channel, even though we're not using it, but the entire show will be backed up on YouTube eventually.
You can see on YouTube, live versions of the show where you actually see our faces and us talking multiple ways.
That's not a good idea or something that I even want anybody to go look at this point.
Sorry. But I'm just saying, our YouTube channel has other things. It has all the artwork is on our YouTube channel too for each episode.
There you go. That's the best reason to look at the YouTube, just for Coleman's art.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And my sweet art.
I don't even know if I want to do a raccoon for this one, because it's like, he showed up in one scene, so he gets cover art. I don't know. Not in my podcast.
You could just do axe. You could do an andalite.
That's true. I've done a couple axes in the past. Anyway. Well, I appreciate everybody listening, and we are so excited to have you back. And reach out to us, send us messages, and we'll see you on the next one.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.